Okay, so it's time for me to own up to a little mistake that happened in one of my emails this morning. And anytime I make a mistake, I like to turn that into a learning lesson for anyone who may benefit from this. So here's what happened. I've got a campaign here that I use to schedule up my blog emails if I'm on top of my stuff, right? If I get my blog post scheduled a couple days in advance, I don't want to schedule a broadcast because the list is static. Right? And anyone who signs up between the time that I schedule it and the time that it goes out won't get that update, right? So instead I use a campaign, and this is the structure I use, right? You can see it just starts when anyone gets this blog opt-in tag. So if anyone signs up for my blog, they end up in this blog emails sequence. And in here, you can see I've just got a bunch of date timers and then an email going out on a specific date, or some of them have a date range and at a specific time, or some of them have a time range, right? So last week, my email was about, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. It was actually 2 weeks ago. My email was about the merge field, contact first name. And if you recall, I showed you how to do a quick search in case you don't have their first name. A lot of times it's in their email and you can bring it over. I also talked about setting up your merge field default, right? And if they don't have their name on file, well, it will merge in friend or whatever you want to use as your merge default. So that was last week, and I thought I was being really clever because my subject line, I wrote, Dear Contact First Name, right? And I made it 3 separate words, so I thought I was being abundantly clear that, hey, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek or a little bit coy, right? Because obviously if you merge in the first name, right, it has the tilde on either side and it's dot first name in the middle, so it's just a totally different syntax there. So I thought I was being really clear, but last week I got, I don't know, 5 or 6 emails from people saying, hey, Greg, there's something wrong with your subject line, the merge field's broken, that sort of thing. And I intended it to be a joke, but obviously it zoomed right over the head of a number of people, so I just replied and kind of explained, hey, here's what I was going for, right? Well, the way that this campaign works for me is once I have done this, right, I just duplicate, and then the next week I change the timer, and then I update the email. And here's where it gets a little interesting. If you open an email, right, and it's a brand new email, you're going to get the automatic drop down that says, hey, you need to choose a subject line and you need to choose a from address. But if you copy an email, right, well, that means you already have a subject line, and so it doesn't replace or doesn't pop down and prompt you to replace it. So what happened is I copied an email, this is last Friday, and I was formatting, I was trying to get the blog post out Friday, and by the time I had it all formatted, the GIF images were giving me difficulty, but by the time I had it all formatted on Friday, it was like 2 or 3 p.m., and I thought, you know what, the East Coast is done with work, the UK is probably at the pub, and Australia is sound asleep, or starting their day on Saturday, so I decided to wait until Monday, this morning, to send out this email, and I just set the timer, and I said, yeah, I'll go back over the weekend sometime and look at it. And of course, this morning I got up and I said, all right, everything's ready for the blog post. What do I need to do? I still need to schedule my social posts, that sort of thing. So I went and did that, but I never popped back in here to check or double check the email. And all of the copy is fine. All of the, the language I used to describe the article, all of the buttons and links go to the right place. I did have something from I had a typo there. And of course, I just forgot to change the subject line, which caused even more confusion because the people who didn't get it last week still didn't get it. And so I had about a half dozen people or maybe closer to 10 people reply this morning. So thank you, Darcy. Thank you, John. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Ossie. Thank you to all the other people who replied because it means that you're looking out for me. Oh, and Kevin. And I know I'm missing a few people, but I appreciate everyone looking out for me. I appreciate you have my best interest in mind. So last week's was on purpose. This week's, it wasn't a typo, but it was the wrong subject line altogether. So it was an accident, it was a mistake, but it wasn't the mistake that most people think it is. And anyway, the point is just proofread and test, right? And test and test and test. And I preach that all the time, and in this scenario, I didn't take my own medicine. So here I am eating humble pie and being transparent. So hopefully you don't make the same mistake I just did. An additional benefit to having a campaign set up the way that I have it here is if people register, if people sign up, right? You get, they're only going to queue up for whatever timers are still active. But what I've been doing most recently anyways is using date ranges, right? So I wanted this email to go out this morning, which is July 18th. So I started the range there. But if anybody signs up on tomorrow or on Wednesday the 20th, right? Well, if they're brand new, they wouldn't have received this email. So I just included a date range here. So even if they sign up within a day or two of the post, they're still going to get this broadcast or this email, even though they weren't in the sequence at the time that I had it scheduled for. But if somebody signs up afterward, they'll get this this email as kind of their first post, and then of course they'll get any future ones because they'll be queued in this sequence. So that's the way that this campaign works. I do have a tag here if they opt out. Obviously, if they opt out, they're not going to get any more emails. But I wanted to make sure that anybody who opts out is pulled out of this sequence just from a reporting perspective. Keep my numbers as accurate as possible. So 435 current blog subscribers, all of whom got an email this morning with the wrong subject line. So it happens. It drives me nuts that it happened to me, but the only silver lining is that hopefully it'll benefit some of you guys and I can save you a little bit of headache down the road. Cheers.